Donald, did you see it coming?
I don't think it's got anything to do with how good Donald is.
Yeah.
I think it's got to do with the fact that the world is disinterested and, quite frankly, is really upset with all political parties at the moment.
Sure. I actually think that Trump dials into something far deeper. The most important skill you learn in public speaking, and people don't understand this. You're actually not taught public speaking. You're taught analysis. So many people hate him that they don't have the ability to analyze him absent of their emotions of him.
They had Beyonce. They had Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is endorsing Harris and she still lost.
Never, ever use society's celebrities to endorse you.
These multi-billionaires, and Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in the world. Is that true wealth? Microsoft is worth $3 trillion. Nvidia is worth close to $3 trillion right now. Is that genuine, real wealth?
What is the GDP of Africa?
I think it's around about the $2.5, $3 trillion.
Am I to understand you to say that Nvidia could buy Africa?
Yes.
That is insane.
Yes.
Talk to me about Jay-Z. Jacob Zuma is, in my mind, one of the smartest strategists alive today. Hello, family. Hello, family. Welcome to what is our first episode of Shoot the Breeze. Myself and Mike here. Hey, Mike.
Hey, bud.
How you feeling?
I'm so strong. I'm so happy that we've been able to put some of the conversations that we've had, because when you and I shoot the breeze, I believe we can take over the world. We answer all the world's problems.
This is the crazy thing is you and I will sit for like 20 minutes and answer all of the problems the world has.
100%.
And then we'll sit and look into the ether and just go, why has nobody figured this out?
Oh, we should have recorded that.
First conversation I want to have with you.
Yeah.
Donald, did you see it coming?
I did. I did. And I don't know why. What's interesting for me is...
I ask you this as I sip from my Harvard cup. This is my Harvard University, because some of us, Harvard. That's where we are. Yeah.
That shows the other side. The other side is...
Yeah, let me hold it the other way then. There we go.
There
we go. The real one, not the one at Pick and Pay. I'll explain later.
So what's interesting for me is and I'll tell you why. I don't think it's got anything to do with how good Donald is.
Yeah.
I think it's got to do with the fact that the world is disinterested and quite frankly is really upset with all political parties at the moment.
Sure. So
that would tell you why in the UK we've gone from the Conservatives to Labour.
Oh, I see what you mean.
What happened 4 years ago? It was Conservative in the US, then it was Republican. Other way around. It was Republican, then it was Democrat. Now it's Republican again. 4 years' time, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. My thinking, though, is that first, I think that there might be something to that. But the second thing I would say is I actually think that Trump dials into something far deeper. And one of the mistakes, this is classically the problem that human beings make. In classical public speaking, the most important skill you learn in public speaking, and people don't understand this, you're actually not taught public speaking. You're taught analysis. You're taught how to read people, the room, situations, right? And the most important lesson you learn in public speaking is you have to develop the ability to analyze a subject without emotion of the subject.
100%.
And I think so many people just don't know how to do that. And this is what Trump taps into. So many people hate him that they don't have the ability to analyze him absent of their emotions of him, right? So you hear people say things like, well, he's hyperbolous, or he makes superfluous statements, or his character, all of that's fine, but analyze the person. So here's my reading of it. My reading of it is that he was able to dial into something far, far deeper in society. And here's what he was able to dial into. He was able to dial into a society that's saying, not only are the changes happening in the world too fast, but we don't agree with the changes that are happening. Now, 100%. You and I talk about stuff like, well, artificial intelligence and GPTs and all of these things. We celebrate that side of change and innovation, but you also have to recognize that those things have affected society. They've affected communities, they've affected families, and not everybody agrees on the effects these things have had. So if you analyze Trump and he's just an orange guy in a blue suit, you're going to miss that. Yeah. You're going to miss that what he's actually doing is he's tapping into something far deeper in society. And that is this deep desire by people to sustain, maintain, or live in a particular set of values with which they identify.
I agree. I also think, probably in America, that the polls all had them neck and neck, maybe had Harris slightly ahead. But maybe the people that they're polling are not the people that are voting. and vice versa. Maybe no one asked Middle America who they wanted to vote for, especially in those swing states.
I had this when I was doing my MBA. I had this incredible guy. How do you know someone did an MBA?
Because they tell you.
They'll tell you.
I don't know someone went to Harvard.
We should tell everybody Mike is a chartered accountant. It's not your fault. Yeah, it's not your fault. But when I was doing my MBA, I had this amazing guy called James English. I think it was his last name. Unbelievable. He taught us stats. Right. And so he taught us about things like how do you ensure that your statistical averaging is robust and rigorous, and like he's unbelievable. He teaches at, I want to say, London's Business School, London School of Economics. He's like that kind of guy. He teaches at Stanford. He teaches stats. Really, really sharp guy. And one of the things he said, I'll never forget when he was teaching us this, he said, remember that at the end of the day, no matter what the stat is, it's still subject to the people who contributed to the population. Right.
Lies,
so,
damn lies. Statistics.
Lies, damn lies, statistics. So you can make sometimes you can make the numbers say what you prefer. Now, I'll tell you where I'm going with this. So the pollsters say Kamala and Donald neck and neck. Yeah, didn't the pollsters not see Jacob Zuma coming?
That's right. The pollsters didn't, well, they thought that the ANC might lose a majority, but not by that much.
Not by 40%, not by 17%.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You're quite right. MK Party, what were they polling? Gayton McKenzie said something famous. He said, polls are for strippers.
This is why, at a human level, like I have my emotions about Gayton, but his ability to say that he was doing an interview the other day. he said, so this is just after the elections, and they're talking about forming a government. You guys remember the time when they were talking about forming a government, and they're asking Gayton, are you going to be part of this government? He says, somebody phoned me and asked me if we're going to be part of a government, and I said to them, if you take a bowl of ice cream and you put in a teaspoon of shit, now you don't have ice cream, you have shit. That's what I love about Gay. He just says stuff you're like,
says it as it is.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes absolute sense. But I do think Botswana just had their elections.
Right.
And Dadeboko just came into power there, right? Mozambique, there's now unrest, because there are some people who say that election was stolen. Not so long ago, we had a similar set of accusations and circumstances in Zimbabwe. And then in South Africa, the ANC. So I think what you're beginning to see is definitely from an Africa liberation struggle. It's the end of an era, right? And here's what's interesting. I think it's the end of the era of liberation politics. But I think that African societies, and in fact societies in general, are coalescing to a set of values, not to a set of ideologies.
Sure.
And this is really going to mess up politicians. Because, and I've engaged in debates, sadly, sometimes publicly, often against your advice on Twitter, with some people in political office. The minute you're having a conversation about okay, so how do we rebuild South Africa's economy? They default to thinking about political ideology.
Yeah.
But I don't work in a world of political ideology. I've never used political ideology to pay my rent, right? So, and I think what you're beginning to see is society saying, your ideologies are great, but actually we're coalescing to a set of values. And that coalescing to a set of values is changing the tectonic plates along which the game of politics has been played.
100%.
This is why people don't understand why people voted for an MK party not having read the manifesto.
Yeah.
Because they weren't after the ideology. They were after the set of values that they believe the founder of the MK party represents. Which brings me to my next subject. Talk to me about Jay-Z. Can I tell you my thoughts on it?
Please do.
So let me tell you what I think about Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma is, in my mind, one of the smartest strategists alive today. And I'm not being hyperbole. And as you know, you and I work in the world of strategy.
I agree with you.
Right. This guy's ahead of his time. And similar to Trump, what people do with Jay-Z is they allow how they feel about him to affect how they analyze him. So very recently, remember, he made that thing about how there's not going to be an elective conference in the MK party. And people lose their minds. Like, how can you not have an elective conference? This is a dictatorship. And I was like, yeah. That seems perfectly logical to me, right? And so my son goes, why would you say it seems logical? Shouldn't he be holding an elective conference? I said, well, think about it. He's just created a party that is now the third largest party in the country. He did it in less than a year. how much infiltration threat do you think he's under? How many other parties do you think are trying to infiltrate this party? I would imagine an order of magnitude what's happening at Rise Mzansi, say. I don't imagine there's people plotting to infiltrate in Rise Mzansi, but there's definitely people
100%.
plotting to infiltrate the MK.
100%.
And I think he's going, I'm going to consolidate power and hold on to it, because I remember that time when you guys used $1 billion to push me out of power in a particular conference, in a particular town, in a particular part of the country. Hey family, I just wanted to say thank you to the 1.7 million of you who are returning viewers on our channel. When the team shared that with me, I swear, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, 1.7 million people who return to watch the content on the channel. That's just unbelievable. I'm so humbled that you find the content we share valuable. And I promise we're going to do the best we can to keep bringing you content of value. I do have an ask though. 66.4% of you that watch the channel have yet to subscribe. You know what would really help me? I've got a running bet with the team, and we want to see if we can get that to below 60%. I need a favor. I need you to scroll down the video. You're going to see that bell icon, and I need you to press it, because then you're going to subscribe, and you're going to help me meet my metric. We have some exciting guests we've got planned for you, some incredible guests we've already shot. You would have met Kasim for our first Ideas That Matter Plus video format of the content podcast, and it's already gone viral. We literally hit 30,000 views within the first day of posting it. No advertising, no marketing, we just put up a link. And I said to the team, I think we're onto something here. One of the things I'm very passionate about is making sure we leave the world better than we found it, and that we leave our community better than we found them. So, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to sharing more content with you, more insights, more motivation, and just generally helping the world become a better place using this medium. All right, family, we'll talk soon. Cheers.
So the other thing about Jay-Z, and very similar to Donald Trump, is I think no matter what you throw at him, it doesn't really matter. It's almost like we've heard it all before. And it doesn't, if you're a hardcore Jay-Z supporter, a hardcore Trump, it doesn't matter what he says. And there were a whole lot of accusations just before the US election. Didn't make a slight difference.
Again, because of his values.
Yeah.
When people are fundamentally drawn to your values, they will excuse whatever it is that society is alleging you've done, even if courts of law have found you guilty of it.
Yeah.
Right, and it's the way he is demeaned. It's the way he moves in the world. It's the fact that he has no problem with. I saw today on my phone, on WhatsApp group that I'm in with some of my neighbors, a guy sent a video of Jacob Zuma doing a traditional dance, and the caption was, "Are you sure this guy's 83 years old? Because he's moving and he's kicking and he's flexing."
He's amazing for his age.
So that's what draws people. So the fact that you're going to say he is state capture, and it's great, but at the end of the day, like, I think when people are standing in that booth for 30 seconds and they've got a piece of paper and they open it up and they've got options, I genuinely think they suspend that part of their brain. I don't think voting is a logical thing.
100%.
I think we dig into something much deeper, and I think that's the trick that Donald Trump pulled.
Yeah. And also he's appealing to people who have had increases in housing prices, that are working 2 jobs, that can't make it. He makes promises to them. And he's saying, we will bring down these prices. We will make America great. You know, the environment's nice, but we need energy right now. What are we going to do about that one?
Yeah.
And he appeals to people. Remember, 4 years ago, I could afford my rent. Now I can't. It must be Harris. It must be Biden's fault. And he's saying, we're going to bring it back. Will he? I don't know. But that's what they appeal to. And it doesn't matter how many derogatory statements he's made about anyone. That's what I'm interested in.
Sure, because at the end of the day, when I listen to a Kamala, the conversation she's having is an ideological conversations about what kind of America we want. And Donald is talking, what are the base values? This is why now he's going, there are 2 genders, right? That's a value conversation. That's not an ideological conversation. He's tapping into the deep values of society. You can feel about that however you feel. As a man of faith, I have my own views about that. But what he's doing is he's putting a peg in the sand and he's going, these are the values I stand by. And I think the interesting thing is this: when political leaders stand on values, not on ideology, they actually draw people more to them than they repel people from them, right? Because ideology is an academic exercise, but values is something deep, innate, and emotional.
And the Democrats had all the celebrities. They had Beyonce. They had Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is endorsing Harris and she's still lost. So what does that tell you?
I have like a whole thesis on this. There's a whole thesis on this. I actually have written the thesis as a thread on my Twitter. I just haven't posted it. But there's a whole thesis on this. If I ever woke up one day and bumped my head and lost all my senses, and as a consequence decided I'm going to get into politics, remind me what I'm about to say to you,
please.
Right? Never, ever, ever, ever use society's celebrities to endorse you. And the reason for this is actually very simple. Okay. People like the lives that celebrities live from an observation perspective, from a wonder perspective, but they don't desire to live those lives. First. Second, celebrities are celebrities. That is to say, they are not the average person in society. Why would you take somebody who's making $1 billion and put them in front of average people and let the $1 billion person dictate to average people how they should better their average lives? Have you completely lost sight of your senses? Like in Africa, they bring the celebrities in to jive and dance, right? And it becomes a concert. And that's how they, and by the way, it's not a South African thing, it's an Africa thing. And it's always bring in the performers, let the performers perform, hand out a t-shirt and a food parcel, and then people go home. But even in the US, this thing about bringing celebrities, I just don't get it and I don't understand it. And so many of them have done it, right?
And yes, so what do you make of Musk supporting Trump and what's happening there?
Because again, Musk isn't a celebrity.
Yeah, he didn't come in on his celebrity card.
No.
He's not a singer, actor.
No.
He's not any of those.
Musk goes, I'm a guy, I'm in business, very wealthy, very well known, very celebrated, but I don't have a CD, I don't stream anything, I don't do concerts. So he doesn't bring a celebrity status to the conversation, right? What he actually did for Donald, which I think a lot of people misunderstand or even underappreciate, is he legitimized him a lot more. And I'll tell you why he legitimized him a lot more, because Elon Musk represents still, whether you like him or not, what the average American wants to achieve.
For sure.
The ability to come into the United States and become the wealthiest person in the world. This is the icon of the American dream.
Ultimate American dream. So what we were talking about the other day, and this is what I wanted to shoot the breeze with you, is when we talk about these multi-billionaires, and Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in the world. How do they figure that one out? Because he has X amount of Tesla. Tesla's worth 900 billion. He's got a third of that. So he must be worth 300 billion.
Sure.
Is that true wealth? Is he really the wealthiest person in the world? And what is true wealth? Because if we look at the US stock exchange, we look at the top 7 companies in the US, all worth over $1 trillion.
Sure.
My question to you is, Apple is worth $3.5 trillion. Is that real value? Because no one in the world has $3 trillion in order to buy Apple. So how the stock exchange works is we have something called a market capitalization. We have a share price, and we have a number of shares. So in theory, if you buy every share at that share price, you own 100% of XYZ. And that's how Apple works, right? And everyone else. Microsoft is worth $3 trillion. Nvidia is worth close to $3 trillion right now. Would someone actually buy it? So one thing, you and I exchanging our shares for $100 a share, whatever it is, okay. But their value is $3 trillion. No one has $3 trillion to buy that. So therefore, the owners and the wealthiest people, the Musks, the Jeff Bezoses of the world, is that genuine, real wealth? I
must confess that as you frame it that way, it sounds a bit of funny money to me.
It does. It is funny money.
It sounds, but it sounds like Alan Greenspan's. That kind of Alan Greenspan era, the what
QE,
do you call it? The quantitative easing.
Yes.
Before that, they were talking about the age of irrational exuberance. It sounds to me like they've printed all this money, and this money has got to find a home. And they've found homes in these companies, which they. And the thing about it is this, right? Is at the end of the day, you can use sentiment to justify decisions.
100%, and that's what these companies are based on. If we look at a Microsoft from a balance sheet point of view, we take out their assets, we take out their liabilities, we're left with about $120 billion equity. and yet it's worth $3.5 trillion.
Sure.
Why is there that disconnect?
Sure.
What is the real value?
What's that about? That's not about a 30 multiple.
It's an insane multiple. I think Tesla's even more. So the question is, so why is that? And yes, it's done on perception of value that it's going up, but surely something's got to give. That does not make sense.
I tell you, for me, as you're saying these numbers, you know what I'm actually thinking about? You're talking about true economic value, right?
True economic value.
What is the GDP of Africa?
I think it's around about the $2.5–3 trillion level.
Am I to understand you to say that Nvidia it could buy Africa?
Yes.
That is insane.
Yes.
That makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make a sense at all. Nvidia is also worth more than the whole GDP of Germany.
No.
One country.
Yeah,
that's it doesn't make sense. There's something wrong. So let's talk about this African situation. MTN came out with their results.
Shame, man.
Not so long ago.
Yeah.
Very recently.
Yeah.
MTN did very well from a revenue point of view. I think their revenue was up about 12%.
Yeah.
And yet, MTN Nigeria is technically bankrupt.
Sure. Yeah.
They're technically bankrupt. Why is that? And it's got to do with the fact that the Nigerian naira has depreciated about 80% this year. So in other words, you would have had to increase revenue and profit by 80% just to stay even from a
year-on-year
hard
basis.
currency and a hard currency point of view. How do we fix this? Because there's very good, hardworking people in Africa, in many of these countries that have these so-called weak currencies, and we're one of them.
Yeah.
How volatile is the rand? It's up and down all the time.
Yeah.
What can we do? Because there must be some way where I can work hard and make profits and not still be technically insolvent.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard part, right? I just came back from Malaysia. I was speaking at the International Investment Conference in Malaysia, and I can't tell you how many times that conversation came up, right? Which is, people are going, we've been hearing about this Africa story for a while, and it's been happening for a while now. And it's almost as if the question is, will the true potential of Africa ever realize?
Yes.
Right. You know how they say you don't really make a loss until you realize the loss. You've actually got to trade the loss.
Yeah.
And what people were saying was, will it ever realize? Will it ever actually come to fruition? And I think this is a big part of why there is such a big ideological war in the world at the moment, right? Allow me to take a. So some years ago, when Jacob Zuma was still president, I remember him giving a talk at, I think it was like a Black Management Forum event or something like this, and they asked they asked him to define the value of a product, and he said the theory of value he believes is that the value of the product is something like, and I paraphrase, the value of the labor that goes into the creation of that product, right? Which is very different to the school of business I went to, admittedly, right? But that's what he was saying, and I think that's a big part of this ideological disconnect the world is having at the moment, where there are parts of the world where people are going, if you just took the mineral resources under Congo alone, there is no ways you can convince me that the mineral resources under Congo alone, right, cannot buy 100 Nvidias.
100%.
So how did you arrive at the value of Nvidia being higher than the value of all of the continent? And it's what you're seeing, to your point, even in Nigeria. I spend a lot of time there. We do business there, as you know. It's what you're seeing. There's the real economy where people are trading and goods are moving and people are making, trying to put food on the table. And then there's this financial economy, which I think today is as disconnected from the real economy
100%.
as it's ever been.
100%. We've got companies like ShopRite that have dominated. And they've just pulled out of Nigeria. And it's not because they're not making money in Nigeria. You make the money, but you can't get it out.
Yeah.
And that's the capital flow. How can we solve this situation? Because when we can, there's no doubt about it. You spoke a couple of nights ago about the potential of Africa, the youth of Africa. Africa's no doubt got to be the number one investment destination in the whole world. Now, only one reason why it isn't is because of the return of capital in a hard currency.
Sure.
Absolutely. There's nothing that convinced me otherwise.
So as we wrap this episode, the central idea that you want people to take from today's episode of Shoot the Breeze, from my perspective, my central idea is that we're moving away from ideologies into values.
100%.
And that if you're gonna build anything, scale anything, reach anyone, your communication, your entry to the world has to be based on the values you stand for, not the ideological principles by which you profess to live.
100%. And what is value? And I think we should talk about that next time.
Good man.
Good man.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you soon.